and welcome to episode 3 of Splashcast, the Swim Wales podcast, with me, Daniel Garforth, Aquatic Club Support Officer at Swim Wales. I'm riding solo today for this episode of the podcast. I'd like to say thank you to James Candy, my co-host for the first few episodes. James has moved on to pastures new, so yeah, I'd like to say thanks to him for helping us set up the pod and get Splashcast off the ground. So to move on with today's episode, it's a bit of a Swim Wales special, really. I've been catching up with Hanna Guise, Swim Wales' National Learn to Swim Manager, to talk about all things school swimming and learning to swim. So it's an important part of our organisation and our sports. So a really good conversation with Hanna about how learning to swim actually applies to everyone. And you might be surprised with some of the things she said, especially when talking about the Learn to Swim Wales framework across the country. And I've also spoken to our CEO, Fergus Feeney. He was in the Senedd last week to discuss public funding in sport. So I've spoken to him about that and about some of the challenges facing aquatics across Wales. And also spoke about some really nice anecdotes and stories that he's got from earlier this year, his time in Paris for the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and his experiences of going to previous games, Olympic and Commonwealth Games, supporting our elite athletes as well. So really good conversations. Hopefully you'll enjoy them. And here is my chat with Hanna. Hi, Hanna. How are you doing?
Hi, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Good. No problem at all. So first of all, just let us know what it is you do at Swim Wales.
So my name's Hanna Guise. My current title is Learn to Swim Manager, but I'm also one of the educators and internal verifiers for our qualifications and training. My role encompasses learn to swim, school swimming and water safety.
Amazing. Quite a big role, quite a lot going on. So for people listening, I guess the first question is, could you just explain what learn to swim is, what school swimming is, what they look like, how they differ, how they're the same?
Okay, so learn to swim is commonly that space is commonly the lessons that people pay for outside of anything that happens in the curriculum. So it would be provided by our leisure trusts, local authorities, private swim schools, independent facilities. So it's the lessons that they operate for their local communities that people would be paying for. School swimming is where children commonly in years 3 to 6 in the majority in Wales will access provision that is organised by their school. So it tends to be in primary school, but there is some activity in high schools across Wales when the school has a pool or has easy access to a facility.
Amazing. And we have our own framework, don't we, for Learn to Swim? Can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have Learn to Swim Wales. So Learn to Swim Wales was conceptualised back in 2013, 2012, 2013, and launched in May 2013, basically as a response to overwhelming feedback from our providers. What they were finding is that what we were found and what the providers were saying is that there was differences between delivery. So, for example, a level 3 class in Newport and a level 3 class in Cardiff, although geographically fairly close, were assessed in slightly different ways. So what we wanted to make sure was that we had a programme that a syllabus ultimately for Wales that was consistent. So depending on whether you're in Cardiff, Ceredigion or Conwy, the children were learning the same thing. They were being assessed at a similar level, so that if people were moving, or I don't know, families comparing where cousins maybe were on their certificates, that kind of thing, because we know that happens, that it was comparable. And also so we could make sure that the skills that people were learning again were consistent, and just making sure that we were given the best structure for Learn to Swim in Wales. So what we came up with was, like I already mentioned, a framework that was for Wales, but most importantly by Wales. So it wasn't just me and my colleagues back then sat in the national pool going, right, this is what we're going to do. It was a case of we engaged with our providers, so swimming teachers, swimming development managers, centre managers, some customers, some of our educators. We did lots and lots of focus groups. It wasn't something that we did just, oh, let's launch this next week. There was a lot of effort and research and collaboration that went into creating Learn to Swim Wales, and we wanted to make sure that it was fit for purpose. So for example, we knew that there's obviously interpretation. So you could look at something and think it means one thing. I could look at it and think it means another. And then Victoria could look at it and think it means something slightly different. So what we wanted to do was have that clarity with, this is the outcome, but this is the description of what that means. And also have it written in vocabulary that made sense to everyone. So for example, in the previous plan, the words move and travel were outcomes, and obviously my definition of moving could be very different to yours, because that could be walking from point A to point B. So we went and used the word swim, because most people out in the real world know that swimming means using your arms or using your limbs to move through the water. So just little things like that we wanted to make that were really easily understood for everyone who was involved, whether that was a teacher, a receptionist, or a customer. So
amazing. I've learned something there. So there's a lot of detail and drilling right down into the finer details then went into that.
Yeah.
And 10 years ago.
I like to think of Learn to Swim Wales as a bit of an umbrella. So a previous colleague was like, I'm going to buy you one of those rainbow umbrellas from Tiger, because you keep talking about this umbrella. Because basically Learn to Swim Wales is the umbrella, but then we have the different panels. So we've got different elements that make up Learn to Swim Wales. And a provider can deliver the whole thing and have the whole umbrella, or they can just take a section of it. It depends on obviously what their facility enables them to do, what staff they have, what their, I suppose, niche product is. So there's lots of variation that people can do, and they can pick and choose in a way from the offer. So we've got something right from birth with our Bubbles offer, our Bubbles framework, right through to our adult Learn to Swim framework. So we've got something for anyone who wants to learn to swim in Wales.
Amazing. I was going to ask, actually, is it just children who can learn to swim? Obviously not off what you said there, but if people think they maybe missed the boat and didn't learn to swim when they were younger, what opportunities are there for people like that across Wales?
So the newest part actually to Learn to Swim Wales is the adult section. And even though we say adults, it's anyone who's, I suppose, slightly older. So it's youth, maybe a teenager who decides that they want to improve their skills. I don't know, maybe they want to be a lifeguard, or they're going into the armed forces and there's a swim element to their selection. Or what's probably most common is people decide they want to all of a sudden take on a triathlon as a life challenge, and it's like, oh, I need to improve my swimming so I can do this triathlon. But also, we have adults who, I don't know, they might have a young baby or a young child themselves, and they want to overcome their fear so that they don't pass that on to the child. Or it could be grandparents, they've got a new addition to the family, and they want to be able to enjoy the water with their family. So literally, the water is available to anyone. So if you want to learn to swim, it's never too late. It's like anything, there's always something that you can do to improve. And most adults, I'll be honest, have it's the breathing that they struggle with. Right. And our teachers across Wales will be able to help you, break things down, build it back up again, to help you achieve whatever you want to achieve.
Amazing. It's interesting to hear. There's probably more. There's so many ways people get into aquatics, and so many different reasons people might fall into aquatics at different stages of their lives.
Yeah. So going into that, we've got our Bubbles and Splash frameworks, which is our early years offer. And like you said, with adults, it might be that they might not be the most confident swimmer themselves, but they might come to some Bubbles classes with their little one and realise, oh, actually, I like being in the water. Oh, this is,
Right.
I don't know, maybe they've had an injury. I hear quite a lot of runners, if they've had an injury, maybe they come into the pool and do aqua running,
Okay.
but then they fall into, doing some swimming as part of their fitness. So that literally there's so many doors. And what I like to refer to is that we give people the keys, and it's their choice whether they open the door or not. And that's ultimately what I like to think that we're achieving with Learn to Swim Wales, that all of the people who are coming through, whichever operator they're with, we're giving them the key to open the door to be aquatically active for the rest of their life.
Amazing. And in terms of staying aquatically active for the rest of someone's life, if we focus on maybe what you might term, it's might be the wrong term, but the traditional journey for a younger person, child learning to swim, once they've done bubbles and splash, as you've explained, once they get to the end of their learn to swim journey, what opportunities are there then in terms of going into a club, and what doors, if you like, can it open up once you've finished that?
Oh wow! So that's a lot of questions there, Dan. So I can talk all day about this stuff. So if I just sort of backtrack a little bit, and I'll just give a bit of information about each area of the framework. Obviously, we've said about the adult section. So we've got Bubbles. So Bubbles is to provide a fully supported introduction to the aquatic environment for babies and young children with their accompanying adult. Okay, so it's right from birth. So NHS guidance says that babies can come to the pool at any time. Donkey's years ago, it was until they'd had their vaccinations and immunisations, but obviously not everyone chooses to undergo that. So literally, we've had stories of a baby being born in the morning and then being in the pool in the afternoon.
Wow.
It really depends on the family and everything like that. So the pool is open right from birth. Obviously, some babies are born into the water,
Yes.
so it's a really lovely environment for them to come into. So Bubbles has got 4 levels of progression. So it's so we tend to recommend that it's delivered Bubbles 1 and 2 and Bubbles 3 and 4, because they make it nice and easy for a provider to offer that progression. And we really strongly advocate stage, not age. So it's you could have a 12-month-old baby, who is their first ever time in water, or you could have a 12-month-old baby who's been in water every week or more since they were born. So obviously their confidence, their potential ability, everything is going to vary. So we want to focus on the individual, not on just they're this age, they should be able to do this. So so we've got Bubbles. And then we've got our Splash framework. So Splash is specifically aimed at children who are 3+, being able to be independent in the water. And that contradicts what I just said about stage, not age. But the age 3 is it's mainly about insurance. So people are insured to have a child in the water independently from age 3. So we offer small ratios. I'm just going to plug my thing in, because there we go, come undone, there we go. So small ratios, so maximum ratio of one teacher to 6 participants. And Splash is all about encouraging a young child's increasingly independent guided discovery of the aquatic environment to develop their confidence. So Splash is all about just having fun, splashing, laughing, singing. The splash classes should be full of energy and happiness and enjoyment. That's what we're aiming for with those classes. Just really showing the young people that water is a great place to be, but also developing them as a human. So there's so many other elements of child development that can be enhanced through being aquatically active. So there's research that shows that if a child swims, their coordination is improved and that kind of thing. And if you think about the ability to climb out of the pool, it's what other skills does that enable them to do? Go climbing on a climbing frame, that kind of thing. So there's skills that are all linked together. So so that's our early years offer. So I should say about Splash is that we fully endorse a flexible delivery approach. So if a child is young and younger than 3, providers can offer splash classes for children younger than 3, but with their accompanying adult in the water, because we don't want to, put any barriers in place to someone's journey. We want to make sure that they can progress through according to their ability, their confidence, and just give them, those opportunities right from the very beginning. So you then said about like the traditional learn to swim. So that would be our waves. So the levels of progression are known as the waves, and in the waves, the children are taught fundamental movement skills. So your agility, balance, coordination, running, jumping, throwing, kinesthetics, gliding, buoyancy, all of those foundation skills that a human needs to be able to participate in any physical activity or sport. But it's just that we're doing that in the water. So it might be that some people might see their children, I don't know, throwing balls in the water, and it's not that we're teaching them to specifically how to play water polo, but it's just let's teach them to do this in another environment. Can that spatial awareness, kinesthetic awareness of where they are in space, how can they move their body. It's all about developing the person, not just the specific skill that's going on in that lesson at that time. Obviously core aquatic skills, but most importantly, we're looking to develop skills of water competence. And water competence is a fairly new term that we're using, because someone can't be safe in the water, 100% safe, but we can be safer. And it's having that knowledge, that awareness, behaviours of the water safety code, of what to do if you fell into water, awareness of risks and hazards in the local environment. So there's a really, really big emphasis on water safety and developing those skills of water competence. And one thing that's included in the waves is obviously swimming strokes. So we've got all 4 strokes right from the very beginning. And I know that there's been, we've had lots of queries of that over the years, I'll be honest with you. But there are 4 recognised ways of moving through the water. So we've got front crawl, backstroke, breaststroke, and butterfly. And especially butterfly, a lot of people are like, why? Well, they don't need to learn butterfly. I just want them to be safe. Well, actually, some people find it easier to move simultaneously. They will actually find it easier to move both of their limbs at the same time, rather than trying to do an alternating action of front crawl and backstroke. So by teaching simultaneous and alternating right from the beginning, the intention is that we're going to give that child some success. And although you're probably not going to swim butterfly if you fall into the river or fall off the boat or whatever, but ultimately it's a way of moving your body, and figuring out problem solving, how to get from point A to point B. And let's be honest, it's really fun when a caterpillar turns into a butterfly. So that's one of the analogies I use. And for example, my little boy, when he was taught butterfly, he just got it all of a sudden. So wow. It just his teacher was like, we're going to do dolphin, and it took a little while, but then all of a sudden it's just clicked, and he's wiggling through the water and he's having a go at doing his arms, and it's fun. So it's and that's the priority, is that that people have fun in their lessons. So we've got 8 levels, so 8 waves that we progress through, and so 1 to 7 are so like your core. So that's like your core journey through Learn to Swim. And then wave 8 is what I refer to, being from Milton Keynes originally, as our aquatic roundabout. So it's where someone can come into a wave 8 class and they could potentially just stay there and just keep going around and around that roundabout. But there's all those different exit routes that someone might choose to take. So that leads me nicely into talking about our skills programme. So our skills programme is our aquatic sports, so the exit routes. So we've got advanced swimming, we've got water polo, diving, artistic, and we've got rookie lifeguard as well. So it's giving people that choice and that opportunity for where they can go from that Learn to Swim journey, which is what you obviously asked me about earlier. Because it's not, a lot of people think that the next step has to be swimming club. Right. That's not the only option. So there's life saving, there's triathlon clubs, there's just swimming for fitness. We've got 2 fantastic diving clubs. So and diving facilities. We've got water polo clubs where, you know, if people enjoy being in the water and they enjoy ball sports, team sports, then they can take up water polo. If people are creative and artistic, then they've got that opportunity as well in the water. So, you know, literally, it's all about, like I said earlier, giving people the keys and giving them the choice for what door they might want to open. And it might not be something that they do straight away. You know, they might come back into aquatics later in their life, you know, for whatever reason, and that might be, I don't know, I've had children coming to me over the years when they were doing GCSE, you know, and it was one of their PE modules, for example, and they so loads of different opportunities, loads of ins and outs, and it's not a linear journey, basically.
Oh, amazing. And yeah, great that it all ties in. You learn everything you need for whichever exit you want to take on the roundabout.
Indeed.
Sounds great. Obviously 10 years of the Learn to Swim Wales framework.
Yes.
Is there, this might be another tough question, so sorry, but is there one story that stands out from a Learn to Swim provider, or a lesson that you've been at or that you've heard from a provider that really is sort of really inspiring and embodies what Learn to Swim Wales is all about?
Oh gosh. There's been some fantastic stories over the years, to be honest. And you put me on the spot to think about one in particular, but I just, you know, what I love is when, you know, you look at social media, for example, and a lot of our providers have will celebrate their participants' achievements, and just seeing those happy faces, you know, holding the certificate, you know, and you know, knowing that, you know, that child has now got that skill and they've had a positive opportunity, you know, a positive experience, and you know, that's what it's all about. You know, it's about people wanting to come to the swimming pool. So there's a school sports survey every couple of years that Sport Wales conduct, and swimming and aquatic activities are nearly always at the top. You know, so something is going right out there. You know, people are having positive experiences. You know, we see people wanting to swim, and that's all we can ask for. So actually, I have got a story. So we work very closely with the RNLI, and so I was invited to an RNLI volunteer meeting back in February this year, and obviously these wonderful people go out and deliver education, deliver the water safety code, and do some fantastic work. And one of the proudest moments of feedback that I've had was when they shared with me that when they go into schools, when they have, I know, beavers, squirrels, brownie groups visit the lifeboat stations, was that a lot of the children already knew the water safety code. Oh. And they would have learnt that primarily from either school swimming or from their swimming lessons. And that, you know, knowing that water safety code could potentially have saved will save people's lives. And for me, that's what it's all about. If, you know, Swim Wales are part of Water Safety Wales, and if we can prevent one drowning, you know, it makes it all worthwhile. And that's, you know, that was one of my proudest moments in work, hearing that feedback from the RNLI volunteers.
Amazing. I think that's a fitting place to finish. But just really, really quickly, if someone listening to this does want to find out more about lessons, how they can get lessons, where can they go? What can they do?
So on the Swim Wales website, so swimwales.org, there is a where to learn to swim page, and depending on where you're based in Wales, all of the Learn to Swim Wales providers are listed on there. So most of them are orange. So if they're listed in orange, they are a Learn to Swim Wales provider. If they are black, that means that they have got our accredited provider status, and if they are gold, that means that they are a gold accredited provider. So that would be an excellent provision to access there. So yeah, so come onto the website or drop me an email, hanna.guise@swimming.org, and I'd be more than happy to help. But yeah, learning to swim really truly is a gift for life, and you know, so anyone who's considering it, you know, please just take the plunge, get in.
That is a fitting note to finish. Hanna, thank you so much for joining us for the podcast. Some great stuff there, and obviously really important messages as well, so thank you. Thanks to Hanna for joining me for the podcast. Some really interesting messages and stories there. And as you said, If you do want to get in touch, or if anything has piqued your interest there's plenty of ways you can contact Hannah and the team with regards to learning to swim. Moving on now to my chat with Fergus, and a really varied chat in which we discuss some sobering challenges facing sport and aquatics in Wales, but also some really inspiring and really interesting stories about his experiences of supporting our athletes in Olympic and Commonwealth Games. So sit back and enjoy this one. Hi Fergus, how you doing?
Hi Dan, how are you?
Yeah, all good, all good. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah, having a good week.
Good.
Plenty on as usual, keeping me busy.
Amazing. Well, thanks for making time for the pod. We'll dive straight into it. One of those things making you busy, keeping you busy. You were in the Senedd last week, discussing funding in sport and aquatics. Could you talk a little bit about that experience and why it's important to be involved in those conversations?
Yeah, sure. It's I suppose, if I'm honest, it's not something I go looking for. It kind of comes along every now and again. That was my fifth appearance in front of a government committee in as many years. It's a real compliment when Welsh Government or anyone kind of reaches out to you as a sport to ask you for your opinion. And they went out generally. These things happen where they go out generally to invite people to give evidence. They have a list of organisations. They go out far and wide asking for evidence and for people to contribute. On this particular, we've done that for COVID. We've done that for cost of living crisis when we were going through the peak of the energy crisis post COVID. And this particular one was on the back of the reduced funding that sport got last year. Sport got the investment in sport from Welsh Government into Sport Wales. There was a 10.5% reduction, nearly 11% reduction.
Wow.
And yeah, and this is the planning kind of period for Welsh Government going into a new budget year. Normally happens around September, October, November. So the committee, the Culture and Sport Committee, I think the full name is Culture, Communications, Arts and Sports Committee, have asked several people to give evidence and to submit evidence. We did that written evidence, normally starts with written evidence, and then they sometimes invite you in to give verbal evidence. I was asked in with the Chief Exec of the Welsh Sports Association, Andrew Howard, the Chief Executive of Welsh Netball, Vicky Sutton, and myself. So again, very privileged to be able to just talk about how the reduction in funding is impacting aquatics in Wales, and the things that we can and can't do, and the wider challenges around costs and any reduction in funding, what detrimental impacts that might have. So quite happy we can send that link out. It did go out on Swim Wales communication channels, out to X and LinkedIn and various other places. So that's available for everyone to see. It's about a 40-minute committee interview where I give my views and give my evidence.
Amazing. And you mentioned the 10 or 11% decrease in funding that's happened recently. What is the sort of current picture and landscape? I know that's a big question, but I guess in a short 4 months and maybe for aquatics, what does it look like, and how's that changed over recent years since COVID and the cost of living crisis, and moving forward, what could it look like maybe?
Well, I think it's never been harder. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I think on a number of fronts, I think we've seen a huge increase in sort of, for our clubs in particular, if we want to start there, a huge increase across the board, about an average of 20% across everyone's kind of higher fees. So hourly higher fees for venues, for clubs to get, their pool time in a week. That's increased, which has made it harder for clubs to kind of make ends meet. They have to make tough decisions about whether they pass on those increases onto their members. And if they're in an environment where they're trying to grow membership, that's going to kind of conflict. So that's definitely been very tough for our member clubs. I feel sorry for the operators of our pools in a way, because we've just done our Swim Wales, as you will know. I've just done every 5 years we do a national facilities audit. So we've audited just under 500 accessible pools across Wales, and now we know where those pools are, the number of lanes, the length of those pools. We know we've only got 2 50-meter pools in Cardiff and Swansea. So majority of those pools are 20-meter or 25-meter across Wales. Where they are, who's using them, whether they've put in sustainability features, etc., etc., etc. So what is coming out of that conversation is it's become incredibly hard to from an energy point of view to run these facilities. So gas and electric, obviously, because of the Russian-Ukraine war, and the other pressures, the economic pressures. It's just making it harder for them to keep the doors open. And again, they've got to make critical decisions about passing costs on. The average swimming lesson, we've reviewed all of our swim clubs and learn to swim providers. The average cost of a lesson now is just under £8 for a 30-minute lesson. That's not within reach for everybody in Wales. If you look at the average families, I think it's 1.8 children. Let's call that 2 children per household. And then you look at the majority of kind of working class families, according to Street Games, they've got £3.52 left at the end of all bills. When all bills are paid, they got £3.52 left for leisure, to spend on leisure or the cinema or sport, whatever, after school clubs. So that wouldn't even get you 15 minutes. It wouldn't even get you half a lesson if something like that existed. So it's a big concern accessing swimming lessons, affordable swimming lessons. The costs associated with facilities, the costs that our clubs are facing. And on top of that, I think enticing or getting volunteers into our sport post-COVID has been a real challenge. Volunteering is not what it used to be, so that's presented lots of challenges for us. We got to be innovative, and we got to think differently about how we sort of encourage volunteers into our sport. So they're the lifeblood of our sport. They run our clubs. They run the infrastructure. They pretty much hold up our pathways. So we have to pay close attention to that, which we are. So different ways of trying to recruit volunteers into the sport and retain them, because they're a very valuable part of what we do.
Absolutely. Yeah, a number of challenges ahead and that we're facing now. But to move it on and maybe talk about something a bit more uplifting and something that can inspire new generations and help us tackle those challenges. You were in Paris this summer for the Olympics and Paralympics. How was that?
I was very lucky to get across to the Games to watch our 6 athletes. Yeah, we've 5 in the Olympic, 5 swimmers in the Olympics. Rhys Darby, 6th in the Paralympics, as you know. Very lucky to go and witness that. I went across with our national performance director, Ross Nicholas, and myself. And I joined my colleagues on the Aquatics GB board and watched the GB team in action, and to see the Welsh representation. Well, it it's safe to say it made us all very, very proud. I think people need to understand and most people do, but when I take a step back on this and realize, Wales, 3.2 million people, 3.2 million people is 5% of the population, and we're consistently putting between 15 and 20%, or contributing 15 to 20% of the GB swim team. So that's 3 times proportionally more than we should be contributing to the GB setup. So Wales continues to punch above its weight. And I think after 3 or 4, what was particularly pleasing, after 3 or 4 senior retirements, big names in our sport, Welsh and GB swimmers retiring, we thought there might be a bit of a lull after Tokyo, and there was a double effect of only having 3 years between 2021 and the cycle was reduced, because we had a 5-year cycle, almost an extended cycle because of COVID, and we had a reduced cycle from Tokyo to Paris. So to put 6 on the GB team in such a small window was unbelievable, beyond our wildest dreams. And then to add to that, to bring home 5 medals, 3 gold medals and 2 silver, was again beyond all of our dreams, and just testament to a lot of people, hundreds of people contributed to that. Yes, you're responsible for kind of creating the system and making sure that there's a strong connection between the Welsh performance system and the pathway and our pathway, and then the GB high performance and world class programs. That's our job, is to make sure all that works seamlessly. But in behind the scenes, there's a swim teacher once upon a time when those swimmers were 8, 9, 10 years of age. There's a swim teacher who impacted that. There's a school teacher who impacted that. There's parents who drove all the way around all around the country. There's volunteers in the club that kept the clubs going to enable that swimmer to flourish and thrive. And you've got to build in all of these people into that kind of that moment, that pinnacle. So it's easy to get caught up in the Hollywood of the Olympic Games and all that kind of pizzazz. But for me, I'm quite comfortable thinking about the entire pathway. How did this person, how did Matt Richards get here? How did Mehdi Harris get here? How did Kieran Bird or Rhys Darby get here? And I think it's very important to reverse engineer that, because you can learn a lot from what went well. How did that become successful? How did that person become successful? What was the support network in place? So it was a really good summer. So, you know, we can talk about, we do the media interviews and we could talk about medals and on all that sort of stuff and investment. And of course it helps with all of that. But for me, it's a huge moment for Welsh pride and sets us up nicely now for any future major international competitions that are ahead of us.
Absolutely. And talking about major international competitions coming up, there's been a lot of talk this year about the future of the Commonwealth Games. Obviously announced recently it's comes to the UK, to Glasgow. How big is that news that we have a venue and we have an event? And what does that mean for Swim Wales, Welsh Aquatics, for the next couple of years and potentially beyond?
You'd think we rehearsed this, Dan, wouldn't you? If I said sets us up nicely for any future international games. Well, it does. And yeah, it does. And the Commonwealth Games is for a lot of people, me included. I will agree. I was very, very lucky. I've only seen it in my job. I've been in the job for 8 years. I joined Swim Wales as CEO back in 2016. So this will be my 3rd Commonwealth Games. I've seen 3 Olympic Games, and this will be my 3rd Commonwealth Games. And I've only once have I ever stood there in a pool. It was an outdoor pool in Gold Coast, and watched the Welsh flag go up the pole and for the Welsh national anthem to be sung. Now, I'm Irish. Obviously, a lot of people will be able to work that one out. I'm Irish, been in Cardiff, been in Wales for 22 years of my life. This is home. 4 kids are Welsh. My wife is Welsh. I represent Wales and work for a Welsh organisation. That's a very rare occasion when you see the flag go up at the Commonwealth Games for a swimmer. It's a highly competitive sport. And that was Alice Thomas winning gold in the 200-meter butterfly back in 2018. And left and right, I have a picture on my phone of that flagpole. And left and right of her were 2 Australian flags, which is even more unique. But that moment is a huge, it's a very, very rare moment, but it's a huge inspiration to a lot of people, a lot of swimmers, a lot of children. And I look back on that 2018 piece, and here we are kind of 6 years later, going into a 2026 Games. Thank God, you know, our colleagues in Scotland have managed to put this together, albeit a reduced or slimmed down version of the Games with only 10 sports. But we're very lucky that we are one of those 10. athletics and aquatics, or athletics and swimming rather, are mandatory in the Commonwealth Games, and we're very lucky to be in that position. But 10 sports will have been announced for Glasgow. We're one of them. Unfortunately, sadly, diving has missed out. It's one of the sports who won't be represented, which is a real shame. But moving on, we can't overemphasize the importance of the inspiration piece. It's when swimmers go out in a Welsh tracksuit or Welsh kit, as Wales, not GB, which again is the pinnacle of many athletes' careers. But I think there's something really special about the Team Wales representation, and that's my view. But it's also the view of the athletes. It's also the view of the pathway. That's you'll hear parents say, "My daughter, my son wants to swim for Wales." I hear that very, very often, and that's what thankfully we're able to do in about 18 months' time. Is take a team to Glasgow. It was a very successful games for us back in 2014 in the pool, and I've no doubt it'll be another successful games for us in the pool. So planning started already. Meetings have started already. We haven't wasted any time, and the performance guys will tell you that 18 months isn't a long time to get a team ready to compete with the South Africans and the Canadians and the Australians and the English and the Scottish, etc. So there's some real talent in all of those nations, but we'll be there.
Amazing. And there's no anthem better than the Welsh either, I think.
You're an English man, I'm an Irish man, but we're both adopted Welsh. It's a great anthem.
I was raised by a Welsh mother in England, so I've always had that.
You've always had that.
Always had that. And very proud of it too. Good. I'm going to put you on the spot a bit now. I did this to Hannah earlier in the episode when I spoke to her. From maybe the Gold Coast, maybe Paris, any of the events you've been to, is there one moment that really sticks out? Maybe one race, maybe seeing the Welsh flag go up. Is there one moment that really sticks out when you've sort of look back and go, that was really amazing to be at, with the atmosphere, everything?
I think if I've got kind of recency bias, it was being in the pool when Matt Richards won in the summer. And that first night when he took the silver, and it was literally a fingertip. That was a really special moment because it was at the Olympic Games. So I think watching Matt perform at the Olympic Games was really special, and because maybe extra special because Amanda and Simon, his mum and dad, and his girlfriend, now his wife, or his fiance at the time, now his wife, Emily, was there too. So that was special. But I think for me, if I look back on 8 years to date, was a strange one. It was the same week as Alice Thomas won gold in the butterfly, but I stood in the balcony with all of the divers, all of the swimmers, all of the strength and conditioning, the performance team, the management, coaches, team managers. There was about 25, 30 of us up in the stand watching Alice screaming her home. And that was really special to be CEO and stand with your team watching your swimmer do the unbelievable. But I'm going to park that. I think one of the last nights of the Commonwealth Games in Gold Coast, there was the women's relay, and we snuck a bronze, and we beat a very, very talented English team to bronze. We beat them, and that's not a political thing, but it was just so unexpected. It felt like we had a great games, and it was the cherry on the top when the girls just brought it home. Yes, it was only a bronze medal. I won't get majorly excited, but it was just the way it was done, out of the blue, and the girls just went absolutely mad. And to see the four of them hugging and punching the air in the Australian night sky was just, for me, it was a special moment. And I sat beside the CEO Scottish swimming at the time, Forbes Dunlop, and I sat beside Jane Nicholson, the CEO of England, and I was jumping up and down like a 10-year-old in the sort of in the seats with the other CEOs. So for me, that was to watch the girls bring that home, and maybe having 4 daughters myself probably heightens that kind of that sense of support for the women's sport side of things. But yeah, that for me was probably it.
Amazing, absolutely incredible.
So I gave you 3 answers there when I could have just given you one. But,
I'll take them. I won't make you pick just one. I'll take them. No, it's great to hear those inspirational stories, and that is what it's all about, I guess, and that's what guides us through the challenges that we're facing that you talked about at the start. So yeah, great to hear about those. And thank you very much for joining us. Great stories.
Anytime, Dan. I'm sure we'll be back on again and keep up the great work.
Absolutely. Cheers, Fergus.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Thanks to Fergus for joining me and for sharing those amazing stories. And here's to more Welsh success in the pool in Glasgow in 2026. So that brings us to the end of episode 3. Thanks again to Hanna and Fergus for speaking to me. And thank you for watching and listening. Please do give us a like and a follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to us on. And hopefully we'll see you again soon for the next episode of Splashcast. Diolch.